Today I wanted to talk about maker's marks. I offer two different types of stamps for maker's marks. You can get a rod stamp, which typical sizes are 1 inch, 1 1/4, sometimes up to 1 1/2, but for the most part 1 and 1 1/4. And these are great for kind of your smaller, more traditional maker's marks. They're meant to be hit with a mallet. So there's those type, and that's one of them. I'm not going to talk about those today. So today we're going to talk about the press style stamps and how you use those if you don't have a clicker. So this is my Arbor Press that I got from Harbor Freight, and this works great for the press style stamps, among other things that you can use this for, but works great for the stamps. And I'm going to show you, this is a stamp that I use to make hang tags for my bags. And I've designed it such that not only do I have the impression for the actual logo, but I also have an impression that's going to give me my cut line to cut out my tags, so that I can ensure that my tags are nice and square. And I even have a little adaptation or little thing for the hole for the chain. So anyway, so that's the stamp. Here's a sample of a finished hang tag that I did using the stamp. So I'm going to show you how to do it. It's really, really easy. And honestly, this is probably a really good tool to have in your shop, because there's a lot of uses for it. I've seen people retrofit and machine them for doing things like setting rivets or setting snaps. You can get little adapter plates to go on here to make like a miniature clicker. But I use it also to punch my slots, because I'm terrible with the mallet slot punches. I find these to be a lot easier, so I just buy these from the die company, and then I use this with my little cutting board to punch my slots, and it works great. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're just going to spray down our leather and get it wet. And just let it sit just for a second. I don't let it kind of return to normal color like they would if you were going to be tooling it, but I do let it just sit for just a little bit. And I want to talk about kind of the differences in stamps and things that need to be considered when doing a stamp. Now, even though this is a relatively small stamp, it's going to require multiple positioning, because when you push this underneath here and the force is coming down, it just doesn't distribute the force across the whole stamp. So I like to stamp it in sections. My logo on this doesn't have a lot of surface area, so it does stamp pretty deep and pretty easily. If you have a design that has a lot of black, which would be the impression into the leather, you'll find that that requires more force to push down the leather. So something to keep in mind. So although these can do larger stamps, things like the surface area of the stamp and then the overall size will make a difference in whether or not you need to reposition it. Like this is another one of mine that I use for like straps and stuff. And see, the lettering is a much heavier lettering, so it is a little bit harder to get a deep impression than it is on my thinner lettering. Okay, so the water has soaked in. What I like to do is I always do the center impression first. Another thing too that you could do is change your handle configuration on these, so that you extend your handle so you have more force when you're pulling down. And I've got, my husband took mine. Okay, so I added my cheater bar on here, so I have a little bit more leverage when I'm pulling down on my press. So anyway, I'm gonna press in the center, and I'm just gonna push down and hold it for a second. And I lift up, and I'm just gonna move it over to the side. And then I'm gonna do the other end. And there's the finished result. So now all I have to do is that outside line that I've got, that's gonna be my cut line for my tag. So I can go ahead and cut that out. Then I could go back and use my edger and edge my edges. And then what I did on my tags to get the coloring is I just used an antique stain. I just covered the front and I covered the back really good and let that dry. And then go ahead and add some sheen to it when you're finished. The secret is, especially making a tag, if you want a nice back that's nice and finished, is I did run my leather through my splitter to kind of clean up my back so I have a nice clean back on my tag so it's not so fuzzy. So anyway, that's all there is to it on how to use the Arbor Press and the press style stamps to make hang tags. I've done the same thing. I did a similar layout on my tag that has some 4 corners. This is the one I use for inside my purses for the labels. And again, it has the cut line and then it has my holes for where I would, my marks for where I punch my holes for my rivets. So anyway, hope that helps, and I will put the link in the description on where you can go if you're interested in buying any of the Delrin stamps for tags or any of your leather needs. Thank you.